They walked past him every day, a simple watchman, unnoticed and unimportant. Or so they thought. But what if that man, quietly observing their every move, held the power to change their lives forever? What happens when a billionaire tests the true character of his employees? Stay tuned, because this story will leave you speechless. Comments below where you're watching from, and if you like and love our story, kindly subscribe our channel. Life, inspirational, and motivational tales that explore themes of love, unity, and patriotism. Stay with us always for interesting stories. Thanks. Let's start the story. The day began with the usual buzz of a bustling corporate office. The crisp morning air carried the faint sound of clicking heels and hurried footsteps as employees streamed toward the imposing glass building. At the gate, a middle-aged black watchman, Mr. Carter, stood with an air of quiet dignity. His uniform was neatly pressed, his posture firm, and his demeanor calm as he opened the gate for the arriving staff. "Good morning," he said politely to a few who passed. A young intern, her face lighting up with a warm smile, replied, "Good morning, sir." The gesture was small but genuine. Others, however, barely glanced his way. A middle-aged executive with a commanding presence stormed through, barking into his phone, as if the watchman were merely a part of the scenery. A senior manager brushed past him with an icy indifference, her eyes fixed on her phone, completely ignoring his presence. But no one realized was that Mr. Carter wasn't just a watchman. He was the billionaire CEO of the company. Choosing to shed the trappings of his title, he had decided to observe his employees from the ground level, far removed from the polished conference rooms and curated presentations. This was no ordinary day. It was a test, silent and revealing, designed to uncover the true character of those who worked under his leadership. As the gates swung open and closed, so did the doors to unexpected revelations. The question lingered in the air like an unspoken challenge. Who among them would pass this unseen test of humanity? In immediate answer, I and my fellow transplants answered. Mr. Carter's journey to becoming a billionaire was anything but ordinary. Born in a small, struggling neighborhood, he learned the harsh realities of life early on. Growing up, he faced systemic racism and countless moments where his potential was dismissed simply because of the color of his skin. Yet, each setback became fuel for his ambition. His sharp mind, relentless work ethic, and unwavering belief in fairness carried him through. From selling newspapers on street corners to earning scholarships and eventually building a multi-million-dollar company from scratch, Mr. Carter's rise was a testament to resilience and grit. But success hadn't erased the hardships he endured, nor had it dulled his empathy for others. Carter often reflected on the acts of kindness that helped him along the way. A teacher who believed in him, a stranger who offered encouragement when he needed it most. These memories stayed with him, shaping his philosophy. No matter how far you rise, you must never forget to treat people with dignity and respect. Lately, however, concerns about the culture within his company had begun to weigh on him. Complaints of arrogance, discrimination, and workplace toxicity had reached his ears. Employees whispered about managers who prioritized profits over people and teams divided by cliques and egos. For a man who had built his empire on integrity and fairness, this was unacceptable. Carter knew he needed to see the truth for himself, not through reports or filtered feedback, but firsthand. That's when the idea struck him. What if he stepped out of the boardroom and into the shoes of an ordinary worker? What if he could observe his employees in their unguarded moments, without the filter of his title or wealth influencing their behavior. It was unconventional, even risky, but Carter had always thrived on taking bold steps. He decided to disguise himself as a watchman at the company gates, a position often overlooked, yet perfectly situated to observe the character of those walking in and out. The transformation was both physical and mental. For weeks, Carter prepared for his new role. He swapped his tailored suits for a simple uniform, trading his polished shoes for sturdy boots. He practiced adopting a humble demeanor, his usual air of authority replaced with quiet respect. His trusted assistant coordinated the plan, ensuring only a select few in the security team knew his true identity. The day finally came. Carter stood at the gate, the cold morning air nipping at his face. Employees streamed past him, their expressions ranging from preoccupied to hurried. He nodded and greeted each one, his tone polite but unassuming. A young intern paused, her smile genuine as she said, "Good morning, sir." Carter nodded in return, her warmth a welcome contrast to the indifference of others. The phone rang. Moments later, a senior manager strode past, her high heels clicking sharply against the pavement. Her eyes were glued to her phone, and she didn't so much as glance at the man holding the gate open for her. Carter made a mental note, not of her rudeness, but of her complete disregard for his presence. Then came a middle-aged executive, his voice loud and demanding as he barked orders into his phone. He breezed through the gate, his focus solely on himself, oblivious to the world around him. Carter couldn't help but recall the times in his own life when he'd been treated as invisible. Each interaction, or lack thereof, added another layer to the picture Carter was painting in his mind. These weren't just moments of courtesy or neglect. They were reflections of the culture that had taken root within his company. He had built this empire with the belief that success should be shared and that everyone, regardless of position, deserved respect. But as he stood there, holding the gate open and watching the faces of his employees, he couldn't ignore the cracks in that foundation. His plan was simple but effective: to watch, to listen, and to learn. What he discovered would not only reveal the true character of his employees, but also set the stage for a transformation that would ripple through the company and beyond. Every morning at the company gates, Mr. Carter found himself observing a kaleidoscope of behavior, each interaction offering a glimpse into the true character of his employees. Some moments made him smile, others left him disheartened, but all were telling. One of the most striking interactions came from an arrogant senior executive named Mr. Thompson. Known for his no-nonsense attitude and sharp suits, Thompson exuded authority wherever he went. But that authority often spilled into arrogance. Each morning he breezed past Carter with a curt nod or no acknowledgement at all. On one particular day, Thompson made a snide comment when Carter greeted him with a polite "Good morning. You should stick to your job and know your place," he muttered, brushing past. Carter didn't react, but he filed the incident away in his mind. In contrast, there was Amelia, a bright-eyed intern fresh out of college. Each morning, Amelia stopped to say hello, her smile warm and genuine. One day, she handed Carter a coffee, casually mentioning, "I thought you might need this on such a chilly morning." Her kindness was effortless, not performative, and it left a lasting impression. She occasionally chatted about her projects, sharing her excitement about learning and growing at the company. Her sincerity reminded Carter of the values he had hoped to cultivate in his workforce. Then there was Ms. Reynolds, a senior manager with a knack for opportunism. When others were around, she'd offer Carter a polite nod or a forced smile, as if performing for an audience. But when the lobby cleared and no one was watching, her demeanor shifted. She ignored Carter entirely, her dismissiveness palpable. One day, Carter overheard her gossiping with a colleague about how unnecessary it was to waste pleasantries on someone who's just here to open gates. The hypocrisy stung, but it also revealed a deeper issue within the company's culture. These daily interactions began to take on new significance as Carter encountered moments that tested the employee's true nature. One morning, Thompson arrived in a rush, patting his pockets in frustration. He had forgotten his ID badge. Approaching Carter, he said impatiently, "Let me through. You know who I am." Carter, standing firm, replied, "I'm sorry, sir, but it's company policy. No ID, no entry." Thompson's face darkened with anger. "Do you know who you're talking to? I can have you fired with a single call," he hissed. Carter remained calm, repeating, "I'm just following the rules, sir." Thompson stormed off, muttering under his breath about useless gatekeepers. Carter knew this moment would be pivotal when the time came to reveal the truth. Now was the time to reveal the truth. On another occasion, Amelia arrived, juggling several boxes of documents for a presentation. She struggled to keep her balance, the weight threatening to topple her over. Without hesitation, Carter stepped forward to help her carry them inside. "Thank you so much," she said, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. "You didn't have to do that." Carter smiled, replying, "Helping each other makes things easier for everyone." Her humility and warmth reaffirmed his belief in her character. One of the most telling moments came when Carter overheard Miss Reynolds speaking with a colleague near the gate. "Honestly, he's just a watchman. Why does he even bother trying to be friendly? It's not like he's going to get a promotion," she said with a laugh. Carter's heart sank. He had given her the benefit of the doubt, but her words revealed a lack of empathy and respect. After weeks of observation, Carter felt he had gathered enough insight into the character of his employees. The arrogance of Thompson, the opportunism of Reynolds, and the kindness of Amelia painted a clear picture of the culture within his company. It was time to confront these truths head on. Book 2. Picturing the world instead of the day. Carter instructed his assistant to schedule a meeting with the key employees who had stood out during his experiment. The invitation was vague, leaving them unaware of the purpose of the gathering. As the date approached, Carter couldn't help but feel a mix of anticipation and resolve. The time had come to shed his disguise and reveal the lessons he had learned, not just for their benefit, but for the future of the company. The meeting room was filled with an air of curiosity and unease. Employees who had received the cryptic invitation sat quietly, exchanging puzzled glances. At precisely 9 a.m., the doors opened, and in walked Mr. Carter. Not in his watchman's uniform, but in a finely tailored suit that exuded power and elegance. A ripple of recognition swept through the room. Gasps and whispers filled the air as the employees realized who he truly was. David Carter, the billionaire CEO of the company, stood before them, his commanding presence filling the space. The normally composed senior executive, Mr. Thompson, paled. Ms. Reynolds shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her carefully curated mask of confidence slipping. Amelia, the kind intern, looked surprised but remained calm, her hands clasped nervously in her lap. Brisa Taylor sat in the center of the room. Mr. Carter began to speak, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of intensity. "You're probably wondering why I've called this meeting. and why I spent weeks as your watchman." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room. "Let me tell you a story." He recounted his time at the gate, describing the various interactions he had observed. "There were moments of kindness that gave me hope," he said, glancing at Amelia, "and moments of arrogance and hypocrisy that deeply disappointed me." His voice grew firmer. "This was never about playing a game or tricking anyone. It was about understanding the culture of this company, my company, and ensuring that it reflects the values I hold dear." The room grew tense as he began to recount specific incidents. He started with Amelia. "Every morning one of you stopped to greet me, not because she had to, but because she wanted to." "Amelia," he said, turning to her, "your small acts of kindness, like bringing me coffee and sharing a moment of your day, showed me your genuine character. In a world that often prioritizes power over people, you stood out as a beacon of humanity." Amelia's cheeks flushed with surprise and gratitude as the room broke into a light applause. Mr. Carter smiled. "Effective immediately, you're being promoted to an assistant role that matches your potential. You've shown me you're not just hardworking, but also compassionate, and I want to see you grow." Then his tone shifted, growing colder as his eyes settled on Ms. Reynolds. "But not all interactions were as inspiring. Ms. Reynolds, your behavior was a stark reminder of the work we still need to do. I heard your dismissive comments when you thought no one was listening. I saw the way your kindness evaporated the moment the audience disappeared. That kind of opportunism has no place here." Ms. Reynolds squirmed in her chair, unable to meet his gaze. "You will undergo a thorough performance review," he continued, "and any future behavior that undermines the values of this company will not be tolerated." Finally, he turned to Mr. Thompson, whose face had turned an alarming shade of red. "And then there's Mr. Thompson," Mr. Carter began, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "You not only dismissed me as unimportant, but went so far as to threaten my job when I upheld company policy. A leader who disrespects others cannot expect respect in return." The room was silent, the weight of his words palpable. "You will face disciplinary action," he said, "and I hope this serves as a wake-up call, not just for you, but for anyone who thinks their title or position gives them the right to treat others poorly." Mr. Carter's tone softened as he stepped back and addressed the room as a whole. "I didn't do this to shame anyone or to play tricks. I did this because I believe in this company and the people who make it great. But greatness isn't defined by how much money we make or how many deals we close. It's defined by our character, by how we treat the people we think can do nothing for us." He paused, letting his words sink in. This was a test of character. Some of you passed with flying colors and some of you didn't. But the beauty of character is that it can grow. It's never too late to do better, to be better. The employees sat in stunned silence, the gravity of the moment settling over them. Amelia wiped a tear from her cheek, overwhelmed by the recognition she had never expected. Mr. Thompson sat rigid, staring at the floor, his arrogance replaced by a newfound humility. Ms. Reynolds fidgeted, her mind racing with self-reflection. Mr. Carter took a deep breath. This company was built on the principle that everyone deserves a chance to succeed. But success means nothing if we lose our humanity along the way. Remember that as you leave this room and go back to your work. Treat everyone you meet with respect, whether they're a client, a colleague, or the person holding the door for you. Anne, he offered a faint smile, because you never know who might be watching. With that, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving behind a team of employees, forever changed by the revelation of the man behind the uniform. The transformation within the company was immediate and profound. Word of Mr. Carter's experiment spread like wildfire, reaching every department. Conversations buzzed in break rooms and hallways, not of gossip, but of reflection. Employees who had once walked with their heads held high, but hearts closed, began to look inward, reevaluating their actions and attitudes. The first step came with the implementation of a company-wide initiative. Mr. Carter personally introduced mandatory workshops on respect, empathy, and workplace ethics. These sessions weren't just lectures, they were interactive and thought-provoking, designed to challenge preconceived notions and foster a culture of inclusivity. Employees shared stories, sometimes tearfully, of moments they had failed to act with kindness, vowing to do better. Amelia, the intern who had unknowingly passed Mr. Carter's test, became a symbol of hope within the company. Her promotion was not just a reward, but an acknowledgement of the values the organization now aimed to uphold. Under Mr. Carter's mentorship, she flourished. She took on bigger projects, her confidence growing with each new responsibility. Her co-workers, inspired by her humility and hard work, began to see her not as just an intern, but as a rising leader. One evening, as the office lights dimmed and most employees had left, Amelia found herself in Mr. Carter's office. Papers were strewn across his desk, a testament to his relentless dedication. She hesitated at the doorway before speaking. "Mr. Carter, I just wanted to thank you, not just for the promotion, but for believing in me. It's changed everything." And Carter looked up from his work, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Amelia, you've earned every bit of this. I simply gave you the opportunity. You're the one who's making it count." Her eyes glistened with gratitude. "I hope to make you proud." "You already have," he replied. "Now it's your turn to inspire others." As the months went by, the ripple effect of Mr. Carter's actions continued to grow. Employees began treating one another with newfound respect, realizing that every interaction, no matter how small, had the power to uplift or diminish. The senior executive, who had once barked orders at Mr. Carter as the Watchman, showed visible remorse. Though his disciplinary action had been severe, he remained at the company determined to prove he could change. He began volunteering for team-building exercises and made it a point to greet every employee, regardless of rank. Ms. Reynolds, the opportunistic manager, struggled initially, but eventually found herself softening. After a particularly moving workshop, she approached Mr. Carter in private. "I've been wrong," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I see it now, and I want to make it right." "Actions speak louder than words," Mr. Carter replied gently. "Show me you've changed. Show everyone. It's powerful to see simple things being done well. It makes us feel like we matter too." Meanwhile, Mr. Carter continued his mission quietly, preferring action over accolades. He expanded his philanthropic efforts, funding scholarships for underprivileged students and creating programs to promote workplace equality. Though his name often graced headlines, he rarely gave interviews, choosing instead to remain a silent force for good. One crisp morning, a few months after the experiment, Mr. Carter stood at the gates once again. This time he wore his signature suit, the polished look of a CEO. Yet his demeanor remained warm and approachable. As employees arrived, some paused, clearly startled to see him there. A few hesitated, unsure how to respond, but Mr. Carter greeted each one with a smile and a simple, Good morning." Emilia arrived, her arms filled with folders for a meeting. She stopped, her eyes lighting up at the sight of him. "Back at the gates again, Mr. Carter?" she asked playfully. "Always," he replied, his eyes twinkling. "It's the best way to see what really matters." Emilia nodded, understanding the depth of his words. "Character always matters," she said, echoing his mantra. He smiled proudly. "That's right, and it's people like you who will keep that alive." As the day began and the employees filtered into the building, Mr. Carter lingered for a moment watching. The golden sunlight bathed the scene, and he felt a quiet satisfaction. His experiment had done more than reveal the flaws in his company. It had planted seeds of change, not just in the workplace, but in the hearts of those who worked there. Walking back into the building, Mr. Carter felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew his work was far from over, but that was the beauty of it. Every day was another chance to inspire, to challenge, and to remind people of the simple truth that had guided his journey. Character always matters. Have you ever witnessed someone's true character revealed in an unexpected moment? Share your story in the comments below. We want to hear your experiences and perspectives. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that challenge and inspire. Let's start a conversation about kindness, respect, and the values that truly matter.